Hello, and welcome back to another daily creativity with yours truly, Charlotte Burns. I have missed coming live daily to everybody, but I've been busy with the Bendigo Craft Alive, which was an absolute blast. It is so lovely to come back and show you some more stamping techniques. So during the month of June, I am highlighting some stamping techniques because some of these stamps are on special, and why not grab them? Now, I haven't checked to see if these are still available, but I want to show you a technique that you can use called rock and roll, and I'm going to use these particular stamps. This one here I bought a while ago. I just had to because I'd taken a heap of photos of dragonflies and I thought this is going to go perfectly. And I saw this stamp set and thought, I'd like to buy it, but I know I've got butterflies, and then decided, look, it's on special. It's on an absolute bargain of a special, so I did buy it. This particular one I've bought as the stamp and thin cuts. So inside you'll see you get the stamp set, and you can buy it separate as a separate stamp set, but it also comes with thin cuts. Now for today's video, I've gone ahead and prepared beforehand, and I've cut out the thin cuts. I personally, when I'm doing stamping and thin cutting, I like to do the thin cut and then stamp, but it's totally up to you if you like to stamp and then thin cut. I have double cut, so I've layered my papers one on top of the other and then cut it out at once. So I've got two at the same time. One of the reasons why I like to do the thin cut and then stamp. I'm going to peel this stamp set off. It is a brand new stamp. I have not used this one before. And the sentiment, just so that you know, does say, "You make my heart flutter." I'm not using the sentiment, I'm just going to use the stamp. So I'm peeling this off. I'm going to pop it onto my block. Now, if you've watched my other videos, you may have noticed that I always look for the words close to my heart, and then I'll put my stamp on this side of the block. But the way I like to do it is I pop it down flat, and then with that facing me, I will pick my stamp up. And that only kind of just fits across. So I'm going to turn my block so that it's more on the diagonal and pick it up. I just pressed down on this section here to slightly pick it up, and then I'm going to turn it over and squeeze it on, and that way I won't have any air bubbles underneath. That's another tip for you. You don't really want any air bubbles underneath your stamp, otherwise it's not going to ink up really nicely. So that's on, it's nice and flat. I'm going to give it a season just to get it ready. One of the things I love about the Close to My Heart blocks is that they're nice and thick, so I can then just stand that up like so. It's not going to sit flat on anything and pick up any nasties. I'm using my Versamat that I always get mixed up with my all-purpose mat, but I'm going to flip it over onto the squishy side because that's going to give me a nice stamped image. Taking my butterflies, I don't need any paper underneath me because I know that the stamp fits perfectly onto the die cut out shape. And what I'm doing is, rather than putting white underneath, I'm leaving it so that I've got the white cut out on top of the black mat. I'm just bringing it as close to me as I can without bringing it off camera so I can see straight through it. But this way I'll be able to line it all up. I can see it's just a little bit bent, and I want that nice and flat. So I'm going to lay that down flat. Now, I am ready to show you this rock and roll technique. So what I've done is I've picked two colours. I'm using lemonade and nectarine. I'm going to do it twice. And I've also picked lilac and grape. You can use any two colours, but you start with the lightest colour. And you'll see the reason why in just a moment. Once you've got your lightest colour, you ink that up. So you give that a good inking up. And we can pounce it across the ink pad a few times. You can also twist it, and that will pick up a bit more ink. If you do twist, be aware that that will then leave a pattern on your stamp. So you do then need to pounce it again just to get rid of that pattern. So that's picked up a good amount of ink. Close that over. And I could stamp that and get a beautiful yellow butterfly. But what I want to do is show you this rock and roll technique. So with the rock and roll technique, what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll this so that the outside of the stamp goes into a darker color, and that's why we do light to dark. If we did dark to light, then the yellow would get contaminated with the orange. However, in doing this, especially if I just go around the outside of the stamp, so I'm just touching it to the outside of the stamp, what I can do is it will pick up a little bit of the yellow, but it's not going to affect it as much because it's a darker color. So again, I'm just going around the outside of the stamp, and this is where the fact that Close to My Heart sell different sized blocks is fantastic, because you choose a block that best fits your stamp. So I'm just touching that on, and then I'm going to actually ink up his little tentacle feeler things. If there's a technical name for them, feel free to share it with me in the comments. But that way I've got a little bit of orange around the outside, and it gives me just this gorgeous rock and roll effect. I can now see directly through my stamp and the block, position it, hold it down, as I always say, for 3 to 5 seconds. That allows the ink to soak into the paper, gives us the best density of ink on there. Lift it off. That usually does stick, so I just use my fingernail to flick it off. And there we have a beautiful orange and yellow butterfly. So that is the rock and roll technique. Now let me show you that one more time with some different colors. I'm going to clean off my stamp, just stamp it off. This is just a bit of scratch piece of paper that I've used. Sometimes I give that a little bit of a twist. I find it helps to clean the stamp a bit. Then I'm coming and doing that into my stamp chamois, which I already have wet with water. Make sure that your stamp chamois is wet with water, and it's not too dry. Otherwise, if you do happen to rub your stamp, that's then going to put it's going to deteriorate your stamp chamois. I'm going to stamp that onto my arm just to dry it off a little bit. I'll leave the orange and yellow one there, and this time I'm using again a light and a dark. So I'm using lilac as my light purple and grape as my dark purple. Starting with the light, we open that one up and we can just stamp into that ink pad. So walking it across the ink pad, giving it a bit of a twist as well, and then walking it again. Close that over. And I love too the fact that the Close to My Heart ink pads are magnetic, so they're so easy to open and close. Again, you see I can stand that up, so I'm not getting that lilac on anything. And then I'm going to come along and holding the grape ink pad in my hand, looking through my stamp, and I'm just going to do, hopefully this time, just a really small border of just rocking it around and going around the outside of this stamp. This time I want to try and see if I can leave the little, I keep going to call them tentacles, they're not tentacles. Try and leave the little feelers so that they're not coloured, and just going around, round and round the outside of this gorgeous little butterfly's wings. I've already got a page set up that this might go on, but we'll see how we go. All right, I can now look through my block and stamp and see if I want any more ink, which I do want just a little bit more on this side. There we go. Close that over and we'll see how this goes. So lining it all up, making sure the stamp is straight, pressing that down, holding for 3 to 5 seconds just to make sure all of that ink does soak into the paper. We lift that off, and there we have another gorgeous little butterfly. So there you have it. That is the rock and roll technique, where you can add a couple of colors, just remembering to add the light color first and then the darker color. I hope that you have enjoyed watching that technique and that you do have a go. Let me know if you have a go. You can always post a photo in my Facebook group, which is Charlotte's Scrap and Chat. You can get there just by clicking on the little link at the top, visit group. Hello to everyone who's been watching. Hi Jenny, hi Bev. It's so nice of you to watch and comment on my video. If you're watching on replay, hashtag replay, let me know that you watched. If you've got any questions, feel free to ask. You can message me. But otherwise, for now, stay safe, keep crafting, and bye for now.